Hello, everyone, and welcome to Prep for the Night. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron Wallace. I'm joined by my lovely, barely dressed co host, Jeff. Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Hey, everybody.
Are you ready to get prepped?
I'm ready to get prepped for the night, Aaron.
Yeah, if you stay prepped for the night, you don't have to get ready for prep for the night. That wasn't as funny as I thought it was going to be. But remember, everyone, if you're interested in getting on prep, EAC and Q Care Plus makes accessing prep super easy. Like 4 easy steps is all it takes. Just go to our website, engagingarkansas.org, and you can learn more. So, since we got you ready to prep, now let's do a little icebreaker to get kind of, because we're going to get real. We're going to talk about sex. We're going to talk about things we probably wouldn't talk about if our mamas were around. Okay, well, my mama wouldn't care. She'd probably join in on the conversation.
Oh, wait a minute. This is a show where we talk about sex.
Well, I don't know what you're going to talk about, but that's what I'm going to talk about. I need to learn some things. No,
Then I came dressed prepared.
you did come dressed. I'm a little underdressed. I'm not showing enough skin. I'm just showing a little bare.
Anyway, what's this icebreaker about?
All right. Okay. Would you rather have a cupboard full of sex toys or kinky outfits?
So now, am I the first one to respond to this?
You are the first one to respond. I asked the question, Jeff. You got to answer first.
Oh, I like it when you're dominant, Aaron.
Don't tell my husband. No.
Well, for those that know me, this is a pretty obvious one. Would I rather have sex toys or a bunch of role play outfits? I think this is a little bit of a clue as to
Now,
my answer for that.
do we consider that an outfit? It looks kind of just like strings. It looks like we're just trying to
uh,
hold the furniture in the vehicle so it doesn't move.
well, you know what just arrived to my doorstep this week, actually, was a gym coach outfit and a hot, sexy construction worker outfit. And
Okay.
I've just bought a stethoscope and a lab coat.
Our
So I'm
kink,
getting prepared. I don't know if I'm getting prepped for the night, but
you're prepped for something. Uh, our idea of kinky outfits are a little different. I guess mine are more cosplay, but I would much rather have the kinky outfits because I like to take photos. Because this is as young as I'm ever going to get. So yeah, might as well take the photos now while I can. But I want the kinky outfits. And when I want to do, I have a friend who has a Power Ranger helmet, and I've
uh-huh.
seen Power Ranger underwear for like his costume ideals for men. I'm like, ooh, I kind of want that. I don't know why.
Okay. All right.
Do
Well, yeah. So wait.
dress it
Is
up.
so am I hearing that both of our answers is the
It
same?
is.
It's the
But
same but different.
the reason I'm not, sex toys, fine, but you also have to take care of them. You have to clean them.
And let's
I
face
feel
it.
like kinky outfits are just a little less high maintenance.
Oh wow. So you're being lazy about it.
A little bit.
I, so what? Well, for me, when it comes down to it, I I like the feeling of a real penis, not a plastic penis.
That's true because, yeah, I will second you there. The real thing is just much better because there's something about the excitement of knowing you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
Because I can tell if I'm doing a good job based on the person I'm with. And
Right.
that changes the technique. If I need to, okay, I got to do a little more, or, maybe got to change
And when it comes to the whole issue of like sex positivity and feeling comfortable in your own skin and your body type, like try some different role play outfits. I mean, it's fun. It's fun and it gets kind of that interaction. It's like going on a little adventure. And you know, I just that's me.
Well, no, I'm the same way. Like, I love my cowboy hat, my cowboy boots. I don't look very country, I know. But for some reason, when I put those two things on, I feel sexy. I don't know what it is. I just do.
And for
Maybe those,
some reason, when I take things off and wear just strings, I feel sexy.
well,
Yeah,
typically the hat and the
although,
that's all I'm wearing.
well, you can tell like the twang I got going. I still got my Arkansas twang.
So, yeah. So it looks like we're both into kinky outfits. That's nice to know. I also think kinky outfits are best when you're in a hotel. There's something about being in a hotel
Well,
and
yeah.
hotel sex that is just so much better than regular sex. I don't know what it is.
Okay. Well, I'm hearing that we probably in the future need to do a whole show just themed around probably hotel
Ooh,
sex.
that would be. I agree.
But we digress.
However, though, off topic, but that's me. Me as a person on brand is always off topic. When I go in a hotel room, I sometimes think, how much sex has happened here? Because you know it has.
Well, now I'm going to be thinking that.
Oh, you don't think
So
that?
thank you.
All right. Well, I do think that. All right. Well, we got our icebreaker. I feel like now we're ready to have real conversations. We're going to talk about first times. Ooh.
Ooh, first times. That
And
could
this
mean
could
a
be
lot
any
of
first
things.
times. You could start as simple as first kiss, first time, or and another thing we're going to do is we're going to answer listener questions. But since it's our first episode, we don't have a listener question. So I have a question from a friend because I put it on my social to see if we could get any kind of interaction. So we had something else to discuss. And how do you feel about sex on the first date?
Okay, well, we've got a lot to unpack here.
I don't mind going first with this topic. I am pro sex on the first date because, yeah, sex isn't everything. But if you're not compatible sexually, it ain't gonna last, in my opinion. Maybe it's how I was raised.
Well, my best friend in the whole world, she told me once I was talking about the topic, and I'm like, the sex is okay, but I'm really vibing with this guy, and she said, let me just stop you right there. She's like, Jeff, sex is so important in your life that this is not going to work. So why are you wasting your time? And I remember her saying that in the back of my head. It's just like she, not me, but she was telling me that, and I thought, wow, maybe I should listen to my friends.
Well, one other thing too is if I'm on a first date and we don't end up doing something, and this is where it goes into my trauma is I'm like, something wrong with me? Are you not interested in me? Do you not want me? Yeah.
Well, to that topic though, for me, I just had a relationship. No longer in that relationship, but it was one of those times where we had very clear communication, and we decided that okay, we're going to have 6 dates, and then after that sixth date, then we're going to get on a more intimate, physically intimate level in the relationship. And I have to say that it was kind of fun, and the anticipation, if I can say the word, is made that so much more fun. Um,
Well,
so
I guess
because we knew we were going to do it, we knew we were going to explore it, but we weren't quite there yet. And but I think the key there is, like with everything, is communication. Like the way we communicated about it ahead
mm,
of time, and kind of decided, what the timeline was going to be, and we made that decision together, and therefore it made the experience so much more
so.
fun.
Was one of the dates like, all right, let's pick a date. Here we go. Our sixth date will be around here. I'm going to circle that on the calendar so I can start Xing it off.
Well, I mean, pretty much.
So I guess the important question is, was it worth the wait?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Uh,
because
yeah.
if it would have been a letdown, let's say those first 5 dates were just amazing. You're like, "Oh my god, I could yeah, we're gays, we move fast. I could spend my life with this person." And then the sex was bad. Oh, what would you have done?
Okay, so what I'm hearing is you have had that kind of experience because you are very worried about this.
You know, I can kinda tell by the first or second date if I'm really into someone.
Well, yeah.
Um, I was also a late bloomer. Like,
Oh, yeah.
my first time, I was 25. Not that there's anything wrong with it, nothing wrong with it. I was just scared. If I would have had PrEP when I was in college, that number would definitely be higher. Um, no, just
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember in middle school when we did health, we didn't get a sexual education course.
Right.
We had a health book, but the section about like sexual health kind of just had AIDS at the top. And I remember, I think it was chapter 8 or 12. For some reason, those numbers are sticking with me because, and that chapter scared me because our teacher was a football coach.
Right. As
Not
they
always
most
the
of them are.
best. Not always the best is for the coaches to be teaching certain things, but it was kind of just like
I'm sorry, but I'm just seeing the chalkboard out, and it's like now we make this move, and now
well, it was more like Mean Girls. Don't have sex, you'll get this. Don't have sex, you'll get that.
right.
There's sex ed. So I was terrified to have sex because it was just it was the early 2000s. Times were different.
Times were very different.
But if I would have had PrEP when I was in college,
And
better
was
off.
this and where was this at? Like, was this in a rural community?
Oh yeah, it was town of
Okay.
2800.
Yeah. Well, town of 1400, and
Oh wow, you
I didn't have, I was a late bloomer as well. I didn't have my first sexual experience until the age of 23.
yeah. So I mean, I'm glad I waited. It's fine. But so now I just feel like, yeah, I waited so long that I was just like, let's just get to it. I got things to catch up on.
Right, right.
I just, when it's right. I very much believe when it's right. But if
You
you're someone who wants to wait, there's nothing wrong with that.
If someone wants to wait.
Yeah.
Well,
I think
absolutely. Yeah.
I might
Well,
just
and
be a
I was
bit,
going to say that because you used the term late bloomer, but we've got to take a step back and realize that it's like people do not develop at the same timeline on the same timeline. They also don't. Everyone's on their own journey, and whether that's your professional journey or your educational journey or your sexual journey or your journey into relationships and interactions with people, social journey. So we're all kind of on different paths, and we may cross occasionally, but the reality is that we're on our own path, and so what's right for me is not always what's right for you, and
well,
vice versa.
I didn't actually start mingling with people who were like me, gay, or in the
People
LGBT
like me.
or in the LGBT community until I was in college. So like I
Right,
wouldn't have known anything. Like I didn't have anyone I could ask sex advice from.
right, right.
I mean, I remember. Oh my god. Okay, my best friend and I, right before I had my first time, she said, "What is gay sex like?" And I was just like, "I don't know. I haven't had it yet. You're asking the wrong person." So we ended up Googling,
You
and
Google gay sex.
well, a porn site, so we could go look at what was going on. And
And so were you scared?
wasn't scared. I was kind of just like, "Oh, I don't think I'm gonna be this good." That was before I knew, like, there's editing, there's redos, there's retakes,
Oh, and
there's
now
camera
Aaron
tricks.
is just like the porn star extraordinaire.
I am pro porn.
Pro porn. That is way too close to the word propane.
Yeah, well,
Get you
Don't get them
get you
confused.
booster shot of proporn.
Trademark that.
Trademark. I got it. Trademark.
So, tell me about some of your first times. I'm curious.
Okay, there's just so many different ways we could do this. Hmm. I feel like when Blanche Devereaux answers the question of best sex ever, and she's like, let me see. There's just so many ways we could swing this. Um, so, I am very out about my HIV status. I've been HIV positive for 12 years now. I think it's 12 years ish. A while, over a decade. I'm old. Um,
No.
so, when it comes to HIV prevention, I come from it from a completely different angle than someone who is not living with HIV, right? But it's still a very important part of my life, and it's still part of discussions. And so, some of the things for me is like the first time that I had to disclose my HIV status to someone and what that was like, or the first time that I had to talk to an HIV negative partner about PrEP. Maybe they knew something about it, maybe they didn't, and kind of navigating that type of situation. But those are serious topics, so maybe I could talk about those in a minute. But I'd rather talk about the more fun topic, which is when Jeff had his very first kiss, visit to a gay bar, and sexual
Mm.
experience all in the same night.
Oh, two mine. My first kiss and gay. Oh no, it was my second time at gay bar. Never mind. And I got excited thinking we had the same story.
The same story. Were you there?
If I was, no comment.
I mean, I might have had a few to drink, but I don't think I was that plastered. I definitely would not recommend being that plastered.
I don't
Um,
either.
no. Be wide awake and ready, kids. My first experience actually was it was interesting. So I ended up in bed with this guy, and I like you, like I had not Googled gay sex, so
I
I
guess
I
my
think I just
generation is just a very. If we don't know how to do something, we just Google it.
I think I just had it in my head that this was going to be this great thing, and I just left it at that, and then left it up to the chance encounter that when it happened that this was going to be fantastic. It was nice. I don't know that I would call it great, but what I do remember is we were in bed. It was dark, and when I was feeling this guy's skin, I, I was it was very prickly, and I was like, what is this? Like, why is he so prickly? And like, it's like I would touch it with my hand or my tongue or whatever, and everything was just prickly all over. And um since I was a newbie and this was my first experience, I was just like, well, I guess that's just maybe a lot of guys are prickly. I don't know. I don't know. And so I just remember thinking, I've got to look this up or talk to my friends about what was going on there.
I'm kind of scared where this story is going.
Well, so so fast forward to the next night, I'm out with my friends at the one gay bar that's in my area, and we're and a drag performer comes on the stage, and I said, "Ooh, she looking rough," and and my friend turned to me and said, "Well, that's what you slept with last night," and I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah," and I was like, I thought about it for like a half second, and I'm like, that's why he was so prickly because he's shaved all of his hair off. And I was
Uh,
like, oh
okay.
my gosh. So, yes, my first time was with a drag queen.
Hey.
And it was actually, like I said, it was good for a first time.
I mean, do we really know if our first time is good because it's our first time?
I mean, hindsight is
What
always
makes it
2020,
compare?
so I can look back at it comparatively to some of the other experiences I've had and said it was great. It was good. It was not great.
Mine, I did question for 1 second, like, am I cut out to be gay? There's because you gotta get past that pain first. If we're talking about anal sex,
Oh
that
god.
first initial pain when you weren't ready for it.
Right.
But once you get past, it, you're like, oh, okay, I'm fine. But
Yeah.
it's funny you say prickly. My first kiss, when I kissed the guy, he was prickly on his face, and I was like, oh yeah, I like this. I didn't know I was into that until I was like, oh, okay, I kind of like a beard.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Okay.
So
Yeah,
now
back
that's the reason when like it's funny. My mom used to always be like, "You sure you're not just bisexual?" And I'd be like, "Mom, I've kissed a girl and I kissed a guy. And I really like the way the guy feels. I like the
I like how are you sure you're not just bisexual? So are we labeling that bisexual is like on a scale, it's a little bit
it's
better
from a
than being
small town,
homosexual.
small town life.
That's hilarious. All right, so did this lead to so your first time did this lead to an enjoyment of pain or why don't we talk about your first sexual experience here?
My first time was with the first person I ever dated, first love, all that.
Hmm.
Uh, it was interesting. Um, I will say the first time there was ever some oral, if you don't know what you're doing, sometimes you use a little teeth. That's how that's when you learn. Oh, you gotta be careful. Teeth, like was watching TV and someone went, "Oh, teeth." I was like, been there. Uh, and that was
Mm.
one way I learned, like, ooh, pay attention to what the person is kind of doing, or are they moaning, or they feel like, if they're saying, "Ooh, teeth," you're doing it wrong.
Communication.
But then when we got to the action, like the other part of it, for a split second, I was sure, like, I don't know if I'm gay because I don't know if I can do this. But I think there were just maybe not had been enough lube, or
Mm, been
who knows.
there.
Who knows? But then once you get going, you're like, okay, this is enjoyable. I think I'll try it again and again. And we spent the whole week kind of together that week, and there was a whole lot of sex after that. Many different places too in the house. He was house setting for someone, so I was like, "This ain't my house. We can do it wherever we want."
Okay, now I'm sorry. Can we go back here? So was this an example of sex on the first date or this had been a while?
Well, we were, as gay men, we move really fast. It's like a month.
Oh my god,
We lived in separate
that's so
towns. Like I
long.
was right out of grad school. We lived like 3 hours apart, and we met up kind of in between, and spent like he was house setting, so we spent the week together.
Hmm.
But the first night I met him, we pretty much anytime I went to a club, I always ended up kissing someone. I don't know why. It just happened that way. Um, but the first time we hung out and like went on a date, some things happened. Fun stuff did happen, but not all the fun stuff.
Okay.
But then once we were, just it was him and me just together like that, it all happened
Yeah. Yeah.
multiple times. There was a
Okay.
first, second, third, fourth, probably fifth. There was a whole lot going on. That house was rocking.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about a little bit of prevention.
Ooh, I love
Since
prevention
this is prepared for the night.
here for the night. Yes.
Um, and it is important, right?
Mhm.
And so that's when it comes to prevention, uh, what was on your mind then? Because you said you were a little scared,
I was.
when you saw that stuff online, and you saw the representation of it, and you're like, I don't know if I can do it. So kind of
Mhm.
walk me through that experience.
Well, I remember like I talked about it with my friends and everything. They're like, "Get condoms." I'm like, "What kind?" I didn't even know what kind to get. Like I was not sure. So I was like, "There's so many different kinds. How do I know which one to get?" Um, so it's kind of everything I learned about prevention when I first started having sex was kind of
Condoms.
self-taught, which
Oh, self-taught.
yeah, or internet taught, or
Hmm.
friends taught.
You didn't learn it from the coach.
I didn't learn it from the coach, and yeah, but I was prepared when I went. I brought condoms because I was like, you cannot always rely on the other person to be prepared.
Okay.
You never know. You could get up in the heat in the moment. Things happen. You never things happen. Um,
Right. Right.
so that's why I
And,
was like,
and let me ask you this. So when it comes to condoms, like, did you know, or did you know at that point, like, the proper use of a condom, how to put
nope,
it on, those kinds of
nope.
things?
I thought you just slid it on.
Yeah. And that it was just super
I did not.
easy.
Yeah, I just learned a couple of years ago the correct way to put on. I didn't know there was like different. I was like, huh, okay.
So I had a sex partner. Well, I had a partner for a couple of years that was great, great, great relationship. He was about 10 years older than me. When I was in my 30s, he was in his 40s.
Okay.
And he had stories of earlier in the times of HIV, and he remembers back when they were saying, "Oh, wear two condoms for extra protection, two condoms
See,
together," and it's like,
I always know that's
what?
a big no-no because even in like grew up with just a bunch of women, but they were always like, no, that's a no-no. That's gonna make it worse. Like it causes
Well, it'll
some
rip up, it'll tear
yeah,
them, it'll cause the friction, and then yeah, and then
that's the word I
defeats
was.
the whole point, right, of a condom. Yeah, it's crazy. So, self-taught.
Self-taught, yes. I guess you could say that.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So
but
we haven't.
luckily now we have organizations like EAC who were helping teach things like that.
Kids, do not put a condom on top of a condom. The more condoms is not better. No, 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 no.
That's the one time more is not better.
The one time.
Well, depending on what we talk about, sometimes the more the better.
And we talking about everything on this show, Aaron. Well, so earlier I shared kind of my first sexual experience, but that really wasn't like penetrative sex. So that
Oh,
was my first time kissing and in bed with a man. But
oh,
that was not uh, the the deed. So
the deed.
um, so that, yeah, I can talk a little bit about the actual deed, because that is a little bit more of a, well, there's some happy parts, but there's also some like horror parts.
Oh no. Well,
um,
as long as it had a happy ending, I think we're all good, right?
yeah, happy ending, and then later. Well, anyway, let me just go into this. So I dated I dated a flight attendant, and
Okay.
it was great. We were taking red eye flights all over the place, and it was
Hello,
great. We
yeah.
ended up in one of these hotel rooms where you would probably think that I probably would have been better off if I had wondered how many people had
I,
sex in that
I
hotel.
gotta stop for 1 second. Since you're dating a flight attendant, I want to know: are you a member of the Mile High Club?
I'm a member of that club so many times over.
Oh, okay. I am not.
No.
No, not yet.
I'll
Okay.
tell you what makes it easier for me, because I'm not, and I'm sure we will have a public sex episode or two, but I am not. I've had public sex experiences, Mile High Club, things like that. They are not my vibe, not my jam. Like, I've usually done it for someone else, but what does make it easier to join the Mile High Club is when the plane is not like chock full of people, and on those red eye flights,
It's not.
you got some room around, and then of course he was like chummy with all the other flight attendants, so if we had been caught, they all knew what was going on. So it was a little bit
Well,
more,
I have a thing when it comes to public restrooms. I'm like, no,
mm,
PX. I
mhm.
don't. I don't do
Yeah,
public. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And
But back to your first time experience.
yeah, so we're in the hotel, and of course I haven't done this before, and so he, on the other hand, has been previously married to a man, so
Oh,
he has, at least a bit of experience. He is quite a bit younger than me, actually. We had no lubrication,
ooh.
and and this fella reaches for the Bath and Body Works cucumber melon lotion.
Oh hell no. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Not today,
And
Satan.
Jeffy, back in his 20s, was pretty much exclusively bottoming, and when I tell you, I'm thinking the Cocoa Peru. It burns, like that cucumber melon lotion burned like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know, like burned like the fires of in the pits of hell itself, like that. I will never forget how awful that was. And I was thinking in my mind, I'm like, if this is what gay sex feels like, I am never doing this again. Like,
See that first moment. Yeah,
the first,
shampoo does the same thing. Shampoo, yeah, don't, yeah,
I really thought you said Shamu, and I was like, Shamu.
no shampoo,
Is that the name
shampoo.
of another drag queen? We've already been there.
Oh, Jeffy. Well, I guess at least it smelled good. Cucumber melon.
Right. Yeah, I guess. I guess.
Oh well.
One thing that we were talking about the other day that you had told me about when it came to first times was the first time, I think, was it the first time that you had done a mail order STD test?
Oh yes, that was recently. So I knew we were doing, married, but you never know. We might, group stuff is always fun. Um, so I was just like, you know what? I'm preaching about getting on PrEP. We've talked about different things. Maybe it's time I should get on PrEP just
Right.
to be safe. So went to engagingarkansas.org, clicked on the Get PrEP link, signed
Love it.
up,
Love it.
scheduled my appointment, had my appointment really fast. And during the appointment, it was okay, you got to get a blood test, then we'll mail you the STD, STI kit. And literally, it came to my home. I went to do the blood test at a facility just because
Okay.
I just felt safer I don't like taking my own blood. Um,
Okay. Can we back up just a second here? So, inquiring minds want to know,
okay.
because I like I said, I've had HIV for a while, so I haven't done these kinds of haven't had exactly these kinds of experiences, and I'm just very much dying to know. Did the doctor was it a doctor that you met with, a
Oh, nurse practitioner.
nurse practitioner, and were they in a lab coat?
No.
Okay,
They look just like
Joe
me, not
Schmo
you, right?
off the street.
It's funny too though. The person that was my nurse practitioner for that, I know him.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't like know him. Like I didn't know how to feel.
Yeah, because it's like it on the one hand, it's like, "Oh, hey, yeah, how
Yeah,
you
it's like, oh
doing?"
hey,
And then on the other hand, it's like, "Okay, now I'm gonna talk about all my sex history
yeah,
and"
because you do, you go through all of that. Like, do you have, when's the last time you got tested? When's the last, But he wrote the lab request. I went to a facility here in Conway where I live. They did the blood, but the STI kit came at home, and you do a oral, anal, and urine swab. And I was just like, okay, two of these are pretty easy, but I've never done an anal swab. So my first thing is, John, that's my husband. I'm like, I need your help.
fun husband task.
So I was like, well, I guess since we've done this kind of thing together, there ain't nothing that should embarrass us ever. Um, but I wanted to go through that process. Just one, when I'm out in public and someone asks about prep, I want to be able to share it with them. It's easy. And
Right,
it's super easy. If I can do it, you can do it.
right.
And they send you your medicine straight to your house, and they will send your refills. Like, you ain't got to do nothing really.
Well, I mean, and let's be real, right? So you're at a restaurant and you want a waiter who can tell you what to avoid on the menu and
Yes.
what you
Yes.
definitely need to order on the menu. What's the best thing? What do you recommend? If your waiter is like, I don't know, honestly, I haven't tried anything here, you're like, I think we need to find a different restaurant,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and when you do this process, you not only get prep, you also get doxypep, which is a game changer in HIV STI
Right,
prevention.
right.
Because you go, maybe you have some fun, you get caught up in the moment, you forget the condom, you pop two little doxypeps within 72 hours, you get, your chances of getting gonorrhea, chlamydia is, I can't remember what the percentage is. Those are the things I
It's
still got.
reduced. It's not
It's
as
reduced. Like, there's
high
still,
of a percentage as PrEP
but
is for
uh,
HIV, but yeah, it is reduced.
so I was like, I need to learn those numbers too, but I'm not good with memorizing numbers so much.
Well, and
But
I think the difference too, you've got PrEP, which you take before you take, and you're
mm,
on it consistently and taking it every day. If you're taking the pill form, you're taking it every day, and you're taking it for a while, and you're on that, and that protects you. But for doxypep, it's like the morning after pill, and you're taking it afterward.
I know
Um,
I feel so protective. I'm like, bring on the dicks. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
okay.
Ready. I'm ready for those orgies. I'm ready to go to New Orleans. Let's go. Let's do this. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
You
for
said I'm
me, I think of when it comes to prevention, I think of the first time that I was in a relationship where the person was HIV negative, and
okay.
I was it was my very first experience in that role. It was my very first HIV negative partner. We were thinking about having sex, and we were talking about it, but it hadn't happened yet. And I was so nervous because this is the first time after my diagnosis that, and it is true, like as someone who's diagnosed was diagnosed with HIV, when you're diagnosed, I think a lot of people have the kind of the similar. This is one of the similar experiences that a lot of people that I've talked to have had. You think you're never going to have sex again. Like, why would you want to have sex again? You feel some shame, you feel all these different feelings and emotions, and the last thing on your mind is wanting to have sex, right? But then some time passes, you get a little bit of education, you get medication, you kind of stabilize, and then you're like, okay, I'm having sex, right?
Hmm?
But then there's all this stuff you have to navigate, like communicating your HIV status, and then like assessing the risk, and finding a partner that is comfortable with exploring, HIV prevention, in order to be that what they call serodiscordant couple, which is basically just HIV negative, HIV positive person paired up. Um, and so I was real nervous, and I approached him one day, and I was like, by the way, I I worked in a field adjacent to HIV prevention and treatment at the time. And even though I worked in that area, I was still so nervous to talk to this person that was so special to me about, figuring this prevention thing out. So I get up the nerve and I'm like, hey, um, so there's this stuff. It's called PrEP, and it stands for pre-exposure prophylaxis. And and I'm going on, and I'm like, and what that means is it's free, and you take it before, and like I started going through all the all of my you know clinical type speak and spiel.
Did you get out your did you get out your doctor's coat and your
No, I didn't have one. I told you that
Oh,
just arrived on my doorstep this week.
oh, that's right. It just arrived. Well, you missed out on opportunity.
So anyway, I was noticing that he was like laughing. He was like smiling. I cracked a smile, and then he started laughing. And I was like, "What is so funny?" And I'm like, I was kind of like, "Well, screw you." I'm like trying to have a serious conversation about prevention with you, and you're laughing at me. And he said, "Jeff, I've been on PrEP for 2 months. Uh, for the past 2 months, he's like, I've known that we were going to get closer for quite a while now, and I wanted to be prepared." And I thought, whew, like I was like, whew, like huge weight lifted off my shoulder, because and that just comes with, there is an unimaginable amount of stigma as a person living with HIV out there that I have to navigate on a daily, a weekly, a monthly basis. And I have people that, um, I mean, you know, I have people that think I should be dead because of this. They there's all kinds of crap out there and all kinds of opinions. And after a while of navigating that, you get fatigued. You get it, and then when you come across someone that really means a lot to you, it makes me very anxious, or it made me very anxious in the past, to initiate this kind of conversation. So for them to take the proactive step to do it before I even had the chance to talk to them about it,
Mhm.
number one, it tells me that they cared about their own health enough, and that they value themselves enough to take the initiative to do that. And then number two, it told me that they were at least somewhat invested, right, in the relationship with me. So it was such an awesome. I just remember I also started smiling once he told me that, because I was like, and I just kind of like nodded my head, and I was like, oh,
I
okay,
remember after my first real relationship ended, and I was back in the dating world. It's weird too. I knew more about U equals U than I knew about PrEP, just because I don't know why that is. I lived in a really small community. Like I lived in South Arkansas, but for some reason I knew about U equals U, but I did not know about PrEP. I don't know why. Yeah. But as I was dating, I could always tell when someone's like, all right, before this goes any farther, and they'd always, before this goes any farther, I need to tell you something. And it typically was, hey, I'm HIV positive. If you don't want to talk to me, you don't got to talk to me. I was like, that's like awful if someone would not talk to you or continue the conversation because of that. With U equals U. And they were very always shocked that I was educated enough to know what that was.
and how long ago was this?
That had been 2018, I guess,
Okay,
2017, 2018. So like PrEP was around, but like I don't ever remember organizations like EAC going to places like where I worked and do to health fairs talking about PrEP.
right.
and that. But I remember doing research about HIV positive and HIV negative relationships, and that's where I was like, "U equals U." But I guess maybe I just slid past PrEP, not because I didn't know what it means, and I was
Mhm.
just trying to, But I just remember thinking, "Oh man, I can't believe people would like that's awful to have to experience that," because some
Yeah.
people, when you're on dating apps, will just be cruel and will say things like just die. And I'm just like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah. And then later on, when I was an HIV case manager and worked in that role, when I had to deliver the news that somebody's test was reactive, sometimes I was sharing that with a person who had said that to other people who were positive, and now they were in the other person's shoes, and a lot of them had that was very difficult. That was a huge struggle for them because all this shame before it even happened, they
Mm,
knew that there was going to be someone else that had acted like they did. They knew it was they felt like they knew it was coming, and for some that was just a really great burden. And um, and it was interesting. It was interesting to watch, but that's a little heavy topic. But
yeah, we went from kinky outfits to heavy topics.
right? I mean, that's the thing about sex, and that's the thing that makes it kind of interesting to talk about, but
Mm.
challenging, but also exciting. It's like it's got everything in there.
I also just the more I've talked about sex or HIV or STDs or whatever, it takes away the stigma that I've grew up having with
Right.
those things. Like now, if I ever hear anyone say I'm clean, I'm like, no, 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 we don't say that. I'm like, because as long as you shower, we all clean, you know.
Right.
So I'm just trying to make sure I help get rid of some of those stigmas that I hear.
So this kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier at the beginning of this conversation, where it was scare tactics that was being used, and so I always have this kind of conflict in my head. So obviously the way to um, engage really relevant and helpful conversation in sexual education is not to scare people. Um,
Hmm.
you never use fear to educate. That's not appropriate, right? Is there a way that we can reframe that so that we can learn from it, but it's not a fear based? Because I think some people take it and they run with it from a fear based perspective, like, oh, well, see what can happen to you if you don't do these kinds of things.
Hmm.
And I always think that we're going to be more successful in getting the word out, and getting prevention, uh, education, and prevention methods to the people that need it, to everyone, because everyone needs it. Um, not from a place of scaring people, and not from a place of fear. Um, and so I just I it's like a pendulum in my head, and I keep going back and forth because it's like there's some value in recognizing, okay, if you may end up in this situation if you don't do that, but on the other hand, I don't think it should be all fear driven. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Anyway, you probably had a great story, and I probably just interrupted it for my giant ass soapbox, and I'm
No,
sorry about that.
on that soapbox. All right, Jeff, we've reached the end of our episode. Do you have
Oh,
any final thoughts?
well, we've talked about would you rather this or would you rather that. We've dabbled all over the topic of first times. Aaron, I am kind of curious about something. When it comes to sex, what's an instant mood killer?
Hmm, that's interesting. Well, let me set the scene. We're in bed, scrolling Twitter or something, looking for some videos, and not trying to kink shame, to each their own. But I just, when I see this happening, I picture it happening to me, and I
Oh.
automatically feel pain, and that's fisting. But I also think it's because I'm married to someone who knows a lot about the medical field, and when we see anything like that, he will tell me how dangerous it is and things that could happen, and if you don't do it just right, and just automatically instant mood killer.
So for you, instant mood killer.
Yeah, yeah. If you like fisting and you want to come on and tell us how it's the best thing ever, we would love to hear from you because I have questions, and that's one thing I do hope from this
I
podcast we
have
can do
questions.
is interview people who maybe like I don't know anyone who's
Right?
ever really been fisted, so I would like to
Right?
know, like, what is it about? Because I've seen some videos and I've got questions. Um, we'll just leave it at that. So, Jeff, what is an instant mood killer for you?
So for me, let's see, I suppose I have to answer this question now. So for me, mood killer, instant mood killer, I gotta say, I think the main theme of this show has been first times, but a close second for me, and something I will always preach is communication. 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 So if you ain't communicating, instant boner killer for me. Like if
Why do
if
you have to
it's
go and give an answer like that? And make my answer just seem so insensitive.
insensitive.
Well, you're like,
I think you
so
got I think you got a whole lot of sensitivity going on, which is why you don't want to be fisted, and that's valid. I think a close second for me is also like bad breath, particularly
oh, I want to
uh,
redo my answer.
particularly um, for me, a close second is bad breath, particularly smoking. So
I
smoker's
was
breath,
smoking came right to my mind. Mhm.
and for me, it is the fact that I don't smoke, and so for someone who doesn't smoke to be for our mouths to be embracing each other
For
and
you to embrace
you
my mouth.
now there are some guys that will make the effort, there are some people that will make the effort and they pop a mint something for the love of god, but if we got to send a canary down to see if there are any lone survivors because that stuff is so bad, it's just not going to happen. It's just it's instant. I You can't come back from it.
I feel that. Yeah, I'm not big on smoking. I don't know why my mind automatically went to the things I just find them very, I think I would find very unpleasurable instead of just something as simple as bad breath.
Right.
We can get into those things in another topic.
Oh, yeah. Well, speaking of that, Aaron, I'm so excited that we are embarking on this prep for the night together.
I
And
am,
I think we're going to have like so much fun. And we're going to have all these awesome topics. And I think it would be really cool if listeners kind of helped us come up with some new topics and things to
yes.
talk about. And if you've got like a great idea for uh, what did you call that at the end of the show? Final thoughts, or
Oh, yeah. Final thoughts.
if
Yes.
you've
Final
got
thoughts.
any kind of just random questions that would be good for topics of discussion, if you've got some icebreaker questions, if you've got would you rather this or that questions,
If you
anything to
want
get.
to, if you want to share why fisting is just the best thing ever,
If you want to come onto the show and be a special guest with us, or just a normal guest, I guess you don't have to be a special guest. on the
Thank
show
you.
with us.
August are special here.
But I think you talked about this earlier, and I think this is a great way to just normalize the conversation. Every conversation that
Mhm.
we have about these topics, some of it you may go, while you're listening to it, you may go, oh my gosh, they are literally talking about nothing right now. But the reality is,
That's kind of my brand.
the reality is, more talk about nothing.
Hey, Seinfeld did it for 8 years. I think we could do it for a few.
But the reality is, the more conversations we have, the more we're getting this in front of
Mhm.
people, and the more we get it in front of people, the easier the conversation that needs to be happening, the easier it is to have those conversations. So
And as we say goodbye, I want to remind you to go to engagingarkansas.org and learn more about PrEP. You can get it in 4 easy steps. 4. I mean, that's super easy.
you
So easy.
can you count it: one,
Yeah. You can do it
two,
on one
three.
hand. That's how easy it is. You only
It,
need one hand.
learn about PrEP. Learn about DoxyPep.
Get tested. We offer it all
There you go.
in multiple locations across the state of Arkansas. Well, thank you all for joining me. And Jeff, I had a great time. Thank you.
I was trying to like frame you like Vanna White, but
Oh,
I'm like turned backwards. So like everything I do is the wrong way.
oh. So,
I can't do anything straight.
yeah, hey, that's what makes this fun. All right, well, thank you all for joining us. And Jeff, I had a great time talking, and I can't wait for our next episode.
I'll be looking forward to it.
We'll see you later. Bye. The Prep for the Night podcast is produced by Engaging Arkansas Communities to engage audiences in HIV prevention and education. Since HIV is contracted primarily through sex or by sharing needles, conversations on the podcast often address adult-themed topics which may not be appropriate for younger audiences. Views and opinions expressed in Prep for the Night, including any reference to specific commercial products, manufacturers, companies, or trademarks, does not constitute endorsement or recommendation by Engaging Arkansas Communities, the U.S. government, the Arkansas Department of Health, or the Center for Disease Control Prevention. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice. Always consult with a licensed healthcare provider for guidance on sexual health and related topics.